Hello and welcome to another Acorn Engineering troubleshooting video. In today's video, we're going to show you how to troubleshoot a 9-volt operated valve system. In order to assist you with troubleshooting this 9-volt system, the tools you'll want to have handy are a pair of channel locks, Phillips screwdriver, flathead screwdriver, nut driver 5/16 in size, and a box knife or some type of cutting blade. Here you'll see a basic 9-volt system setup. You have the 9-volt eye sensor, indicated by its blue and red connectors, with the red clip and the white clip at the end. Your 9-volt solenoid, which has the white male clip on the end. A 9-volt transformer. But 9-volt can also use battery pack. Unlike its brother, the 24-volt system, this 9-volt system can work with either a transformer or with the battery pack. You can connect all of these together just like this. So from the eye sensor, this white clip is going to go to the solenoid. To identify which side is positive and which side is negative, you can see a bridge on the white plastic here. Also, the cable that is plugged into that port that has that bridge also has a red indicator on it, indicating that that's the positive line. The negative line has a black indicator on it. So you're going to take your female to the male on the solenoid itself. And you can also identify what is positive and what is negative using the clip. But you see this little button here, this little nub, it's only on one side. That indicates the positive side. Also, just like the eye sensor, it has a red tape around it that indicates that it's positive. So that way, when you connect them together, even though they can go in one way, you just to identify them, connect them together like this. You'll see they clip together, so you can't just pull them apart. But you'll see that positive goes to positive. To take them apart, you would just squeeze and pull. Then hooking up the power, depending on if you're using a transformer or a battery pack, it really doesn't matter because they're the same type of connectors. So I'm taking the end of the transformer here, which has the same indicators as what I had shown you on the solenoid. The positive has that same bridge, but it's now a red connector for power. And the same thing for the eye sensor. It has that little nub on the end here for positive. And it's also a red connector indicating power, and they plug in just the same, push together. They won't pull apart until you unclip and pull apart. So right now I have this connected to a transformer. If the customer wants to change to a battery pack style, you would simply need to disconnect the transformer from the eye sensor. See here, that's transformer. Take your battery pack that holds 6 AA batteries and connect it the same way. And now it's battery operated. If everything is connected properly, you should have a working 9-volt system. And I'll show you now. You'll see that in the center there, you saw the red light and you heard the solenoid click. That's because the camera's lens is obstructing the view of the eye sensor. Once I remove it, you heard the solenoid, the piston inside drop back on the diaphragm. I'm going to show you that again. See how the eye sensor just blinked because it picked up the camera. I'm going to move it out of the camera's way. Hopefully you can still see it. Okay, red light turned off and the solenoid's piston dropped. One more time. On. But let's move it out of the way. Off. Here is a close-up view of the 9-volt eye sensor. Okay, When using a battery pack, if the batteries are low, when a user is up in front of the eye sensor putting their hand in front of it, there is a red LED right in the center of this bridge here. It will flash a couple of times every 2 seconds. It will flash. That indicates that the batteries are low and that they need to be replaced. To change the batteries, all you have to do is pop this cover off, put the new batteries in, and put the cover back on. Simple. Pull the cover off, put new batteries in, push the cover back on, and the batteries are now replaced, and you should have refreshed batteries. So now that the batteries are changed, when you put your hand in front of the eye sensor, you should only see one blinking light indicating that it's turning on, and as long as the hand is in front of the eye sensor, the water will come out. If the sensor does not flash when the user's hands are within range, check the circuit breaker. It might be tripped. Also, if your transformer is connected to a GFCI outlet, then it is possible that that is tripped. So you want to make sure that you hit the reset button and that outlet is ready for use. Also, the battery, if you're using a battery pack, might be completely used up. Now the other possibility is that there might be something obstructing the eye sensor for longer than 90 seconds, which is its security shut-off time. So if it has something obstructing it longer than 90 seconds, it's going to always remain in the off position. So look for nearby reflective surfaces like mirrors and steel. Also look for anything in its nearby view, and also make sure that the range is adjusted to where it's only sensing anybody that's standing directly in front of it or the arms of the user washing their hands. If you have checked your circuit breaker and your circuit breaker isn't tripped, you check the GFCI and it's been reset and it's in its on position, then it is possible you have a defective 9-volt transformer. You can check the transformer by taking a multimeter, disconnecting the transformer from the eye sensor, and with your multimeter, turn it into voltage mode. If you place the positive lead from the multimeter into your positive pin, which again is designated by the bridge here, and your negative lead from the multimeter into your negative pin, you should be drawing 9 volts. If you are not, that's indicative of a 9-volt transformer that is defective and needs to be replaced. The transformer's part number is 0711-410-001. Also on the transformer, you want to check to make sure that the polarities are not crossed. The positive cable is the solid black cable. The negative cable is the black cable with a white stripe on it. The positive will be plugged into the side with the bridge, and the negative will be plugged into the side without one. If they are crossed, you will need to replace the transformer. Do not attempt to splice them, as you might result in having a defective eye sensor by doing so. There are 2 ways to adjust the sensor range on the 9-volt eye sensor. The first way is to do it manually. What you're going to do is disconnect the power by removing these red clips. After you do that, you're going to take a conductive piece of metal, like a jumper or something like this wire, and you're going to touch the positive and negative pins together like so. And we're going to leave it like that for 5 seconds. After 5 seconds, we're going to remove the jumper and immediately connect it back to power and place our hand in front of the eye sensor. It's going to blink 3 times, and after the 3rd blink, it's going to go into a rapid blinking mode. So it's going to go 1, 2, 3, and then it's going to blink extremely rapidly. When it's blinking rapidly, you can move your hand back or forward to where you want the range. I'm going to set this one back, so I'm going to move my hand back. Okay, now that I have it where I want it, take my hand out of the way, and the blinking is going to stop. Once the blinking stops and you've taken your hand out of its line of sight, it is now set for that range. So wherever you had your hand last, that's where the range is now set. The other way to adjust the sensor is with a remote. This remote works just like a TV remote. To adjust the range, aim it at the eye sensor, press the range button, wait for the eye sensor to blink, then you would hit the minus to reduce its range, plus to increase its range. Each button press is equivalent to ½ an inch. So let's show you how it's done. I'm going to hit the range button. Now you see the blinking red light, it's going fast. When I hit plus, I am taking the range out ½ an inch each time. When I press minus, it's taking it in ½ an inch each time. After the blinking red light goes away, your range is now set. The eye sensor can pick up reflective surfaces, so make sure that you do not have anything reflective adjacent to the eye sensor, such as mirrors or the strips on your safety vest, just like this. Once I put it somewhere near the eye sensor, it's going to pick it up because it reflects light to the photosensor in the eye sensor here. If you have gone through all of the troubleshooting for the eye sensor, you have checked the range, you have removed any reflective surfaces nearby, and it still does not operate when a user's hand comes in view of the eye sensor, then it is possible that you have a defective eye sensor and that it needs to be replaced. So placing your hand in front of the eye sensor, if you do not hear the solenoid click, there's no flashing LED light, and you have checked your transformer, reflective surfaces, and range, then you need to replace your eye sensor. Replacing the eye sensor is simple. First, disconnect it from power. Next, from the solenoid, take your eye sensor. Okay, grab your new one and mount it inside of your unit. Connect the solenoid. And then the power. And now you have a new eye sensor on your system. If you place your hand in front of the eye sensor and the LED light blinks and you hear the solenoid click but no water is coming out, then what you'll want to do is follow your supply line here up to your building supply line and make sure that any of the angle stops or supply to this valve are turned on. If they are not turned on, you're not going to receive any water to this valve, and that's why nothing is coming out. If you have verified that your main supply is indeed turned on and you are getting water to this valve, then you will need to check the check stop to make sure that this brass pin is turned all the way out so that water can pass through into the valve. If this brass pin is turned all the way in clockwise, just like this, then that means that the water is off and that you're not going to get water to this valve. So what you'll want to do is just take your flathead screwdriver, turn it counterclockwise until that brass pin is all the way out. When this brass pin is all the way out, this check stop is completely open and allowing water to the valve here. You'll also want to make sure that the strainer inside this check stop is clear of any debris, grime, or buildup. You can do so by removing the cap, using a pair of channel locks. You go on top of the head here and give it a turn counterclockwise. Once the cap is loose enough, you can pull it off, and underneath you'll find a strainer. Take this out and clean it. Make sure that it has no debris on it, that is free of calcium buildup and grime. Also, take the stem out here. If the spring comes off without the stem, you can use a pair of needle nose pliers to take the stem out. You'll want to make sure that the stem is also clear of grime buildup or any type of debris, and place it back in with the spring on top. Once you have checked the check stop strainer for any type of debris, grime, buildup, calcium, anything like that, go ahead and put the screen back on, just like so. Place the cap back on and just hand tighten it. Just like that. And then you can go ahead and give it another quarter turn using your pair of channel locks. And that's tight enough. If the eye sensor flashes when you place your hand in front of it, but the solenoid doesn't click and no water comes out, you're going to want to check your solenoid connection to the eye sensor itself. See here, the eye sensor looks like it's connected to the solenoid, but it is not. It's actually a bit far away, so the metal pins on the inside are not making contact. So we want to make sure that we press these together firmly, and you can hear the clips make a clicking noise once they snap together. Now the sensor is connected to the solenoid properly. Next, we're going to want to check the solenoid for any debris inside of it or anything that might be blocking it from moving freely. Disconnect it from the eye sensor and then turn it counterclockwise. Turning it over, you'll see a plunger with a rubber tip, and if you pull it out, you'll see that the stem is stainless steel. You'll just want to make sure that there is no debris or buildup inside this solenoid, and that there is nothing on the stem that would cause it to get stuck. So just make sure it's clean. You can rinse it under water, put it back inside of the solenoid. When you put the plunger or piston back into the solenoid, just let the solenoid's magnet pick up the plunger on its own. Do not push it in. This allows it to be placed into the correct position. Pushing it in will place it into a current on position, and it will mimic a faucet that won't shut off. When you replace the solenoid, it will come with an O-ring like this. You want to make sure that inside this valve body here that you take the old O-ring out. You don't want to double stack these. If you double stack them, this plunger that's inside the solenoid will sit too far back from the diaphragm and the water won't be able to shut off at all. It'll continuously run. So just make sure that there's no O-ring in here left from the old solenoid before you place the new O-ring in. So once we have done that, we can go ahead and place it back on the valve body by turning clockwise. And connecting it back to the eye sensor. Next, we're going to want to check the water diaphragm for any debris, buildup, or grime. First, you want to disconnect the solenoid from the eye sensor, and then you want to remove these 4 screws by turning them counterclockwise with a Phillips screwdriver. Now that we have the 4 screws removed, lift the bonnet cap up like so, and inside is the water diaphragm. What you want to do is take the water diaphragm out and make sure that it is clean of all debris or calcium buildup. Also, you'll want to check the 3 holes, one in the center, one outside, and then one adjacent to it on the other side. You want to make sure that those are all clear of debris or buildup as well. As you can see, this diaphragm is pretty dirty, so I'm going to replace this one. You can clean it underwater using liquid soap and warm water. If you see any black grime coming off on your fingers, though, it is time to replace the diaphragm, as that means the rubber is starting to deteriorate. Now that I have grabbed my replacement diaphragm, I'm going to go ahead and just inspect it as well. Make sure that there's no type of dust or dirt any debris clogging these holes up. And once I've done my inspection on it, I'm going to place it in the valve body like so. Place the solenoid on top like that. And then tighten it down with the 4 screws. Okay, once we have tightened down the 4 screws, make sure they're tight as well, because you want to make sure that the bonnet is sitting tight and firmly on top of the valve body here so that you don't have any leaks. Once we have it mounted, go ahead and connect the solenoid back up by pressing these white clips together. You're going to also want to check your riser tubing and your flow control. You want to check your riser tubing for any types of leaks. You'll see pinhole leaks if water is squirting out of this riser tubing, as this is where the water comes from and up to your bubbler. You also want to make sure that it's not kinked in any way, like a water hose. If the riser tubing is kinked, then you're going to have either reduced or no flow at all. Also, you want to check your flow control, which is inside the gray cap here. To check the flow control, you remove the gray cap here by turning it counterclockwise. Inside, you'll see a black rubber cone. We're going to take that out with our fingers. And then if you look at it, it has a small hole in the center that goes all the way through. And what you want to do is check this for any calcium buildup, any type of debris or grime. If it's not clean, you're going to want to clean it off. Warm water, liquid soap will work as well, and just rinse it off thoroughly when you're done. Once you have verified that it is in good condition, it's not deteriorating, we're going to place this bottom that has the slit around the bottom here. We're going to face that up towards the riser tubing and place it inside the groove, inside the cap, with the cone facing down towards the valve. After we have it set in, you're going to put it back on the elbow, and when you tighten it, go clockwise and make sure that you only hand tighten it. That's all that is required to seal this, is hand tightening. If you try to wrench it down, you'll risk cracking the elbow or the cap itself. To replace the check stop strainer, make sure your water supply is turned off at a local angle stop or at the main water supply. Then take your braided hose off by turning counterclockwise. And that's where your 5/16 nut driver socket or wrench comes in. You're going to remove these 2 screws here. And then, to take off the check stop strainer, all you have to do is pull back. As I stated before, all it is a push-in fitting with the O-ring connection. Okay, then you're going to take your new check stop and you're going to check the O-ring connection. Make sure that there's no grime or buildup or water calcium or anything like that. Just kind of give it a point inspection. You can make sure that it's our check stop strainer by looking at the part number that's located on the side, 2570-011. It also has Acorn stamped into the plastic body. And there's also a timestamp right below it. And that will verify that it is ours. Once you have checked it and verified it's ours, go ahead and just place it on the valve and push it in like so. Then you're going to take your sheet metal screw and you're going to place it in to the first slot up close to the valve body. Now before you tighten it down, you're going to want to squeeze with your thumb here and your finger up here this joint together to make sure that it's completely tight. You don't want it separated at all, otherwise you're going to risk leaking in between the valve body and the check stop strainer. So once I've done that, go ahead and tighten that nut all the way down and then do so to the back. To remove the valve body, since it's all push-in fittings, it's the same way. The only difference is that instead of the screws being on top, there's a screw on the back here. Take that screw out and you can pull the valve body off and put a new one on the same way. So to take the elbow off for replacement, just remove this retaining clip. Just like that. So after you have it risen up, you can go ahead and use your finger. Just like that. There's a retaining clip. And then you can pull the elbow out like so. And that's the elbow. You can see that it's connected with an O-ring fitting. Now you're going to take your new elbow. You're going to place it inside the valve like so until it snaps in. Take your retaining clip and push it over like so into the slots and push it down until it clips. And now the elbow is securely fastened and replaced.